Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Wendy J. Haney, and today I needed a simple block. We're going to do the double wrench. Yep, it also, basically in my quilt block encyclopedia, it is more than half a page of names for this single block. Double wrench, wrench, monkey wrench, let's see, hole in the barn door, Alaska homestead. Oh my gosh, they had names for this in the past between 1882 and 1932. So a lot of different names, but I did a little Googling on the internet and people are referring to it as the double wrench or monkey wrench. So I needed a simple block because the last video I did that Kevin's editing, he says it's really, really long. I'm not sure he's gonna be done with it by Friday. So we're doing a simple one to help him out. Okay, this is a cool and easy block. This is a 10-inch finished block, so it's 10.5-inch unfinished now. And it's kind of an unusual size because you've got your blocks in the corner. So we've got 4 half-square triangles. And since we're working with the 10-inch block, our half-square triangles are going to be 4.5-inch unfinished, 4.5 finished. And our strips here that we're going to be working with are 2.5-inch strips unfinished, which will end up with a 10-inch finished block. As I said, this is so easy. So what we need to do is do 4 half-square triangles. Guess what? We have a super easy way to do 4 at a time. Now, with that said, because our blocks are going to be 4.5-inch unfinished, we need 2 pieces of fabric, one for our dark and one for our light, and I cut these 7.25 inches. We're gonna put them, we'll do it this way. I've got a batik in the mix here, and with the batik, it's hard to tell right side from wrong side because they're kind of the same. So we're gonna put right sides together, and then you're gonna sew 1/4 inch all the way around. Yep, it is that simple. Okay, I'm gonna set this aside for a minute here because, no, I'm not. We're gonna go ahead and finish the half-square triangles and get those all ready to go. And then I'll show you the strip piecing that we're gonna do for the 2.5-inch strips. Now that I have, there we can see it better there probably, my seam sewed all the way around the edge. Now we're gonna magically turn this 7.25 inch square into 4 half-square triangles. Now, I am making these in a way such that you have to trim them down when you're done cutting them out here. This will give you a much more accurate half-square triangle, in my opinion. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna get a ruler out that's not too long and doesn't get in your way. I love this 6x12, and you're gonna put corner to corner. Yep, and then you're going to cut. And then you're gonna lift your ruler off very carefully and turn it and do the same thing corner to corner on your other side. On this ruler, depending on how you situate it, you've got a corner there and you've got a line. So that should be straight line on your square as well. There we go. Now this turns into 4 half-square triangles. Woohoo! Now, press them to the dark. I'm gonna set those aside. I'm gonna just finger press this. Press them with the iron before you move to the next step. I'm gonna do this one now, quick-like, so that I don't have to take time going to the ironing board. But before you trim up your half-square triangles, it is always best to press them instead of just finger pressing. You'll get much more accurate. And you know what? Just sit tight for a minute, okay? There we go. I just had to press it. It's just, yes. Okay, then take your OmniGrid ruler or whatever ruler you have that has a diagonal that you can put on the your diagonal seam, and we need a 4.5-inch half-square triangle. So you want to make sure you position your ruler so that Your 4.5 is right here, and there's fabric outside of it for you to trim. And then of course up here, you want to trim as well. Okay, get that ruler on the line of your seam. Trim, we flip it, so now the side you just trimmed is over on your left and the bottom. You're going to put your ruler back on it. This time, the 4.5-inch line of your ruler should be exactly on your cut line. Your angle, 45-degree angle on your ruler should still match perfectly on the seam of your block. And we're going to cut it. There we go. Now you have, once you get all yours pressed and trimmed, you have 4 perfect half square triangles. Okay, so we're going to set those aside. Now we need some strips of fabric. We need 2.5-inch strips of fabric. Now with what we need now are strips, and the easiest thing to do is do strip piecing. So we're going to need a 2.5-inch strip of your yellow and a 2.5-inch strip of your blue, and then we're going to sew those together, and then we're going to subcut them. And then we got this lowly 2.5-inch square in the middle. So between these sets here, you need an 18-inch strip per block, and then a little bit more for your 2.5-inch strip. So basically, if you have a strip about 22 inches long, in other words, half of a width of fabric, you will get 1 block out of it. So I had my yellow already cut. I have more than enough to get what I need. And in fact, we're going to get that 2.5-inch square cut out right now before I forget about it. So I'm gonna get rid of the salvage on the one end. I'm gonna flip it over, and I'm gonna cut my 2.5-inch square out of the middle. Now we've got that, okay? We're gonna set that aside with our half square triangles. And this is more than enough for the yellow piece that I need. Now, I didn't have a piece of blue pre-cut. Oh, I thought I had this laid out nice and neat, but then I went and cut my 7.5-inch square out of it. So, I have this piece of blue, and as you can see, I already have a chunk of it cut out of it, but we only need 18 inches of it. So, we're going to, and I know this isn't square, so we're going to straighten up this edge here before I cut my 2.5-inch strip. So I put this ruler here, line up, doesn't matter what, align with my fold line, and then put this here. And I don't want to lose quite that much, making sure that all the way at the top you still have fabric under your ruler. Double check that. Basically butt that up against that. Move that out of the way. And there we go. Now I have a straight edge that I can now cut my 2.5-inch strip. And this is going to give me more than I need, but that's okay. 2.5-inch strips, they come in handy elsewhere. Okay, so there. Now we have our 2.5-inch square of blue. I'm sorry, my 2.5-inch strip of blue and my 2.5-inch strip of yellow. So I'm going to lay those on top of each other, and then we're going to go and sew a 1/4 inch. If you are making a lot more of these blocks, then I would suggest you kind of do, well, basically a half a width of fabric gives you 1 block. So if you're just cutting strips of the full width of fabric, you should be able to get 2 blocks from each strip. So that way it'll help you do the math when you're trying to figure out this for a bigger quilt. And I am going to go sew these together, and then I'll show you how we're going to subcut these to get the pieces that we need for our block. Okay, I have my yellow and my blue strip ready to go. So the first thing we're gonna do is trim up one end of it to make sure we have a nice even end. I always like to, instead of keeping the edges completely straight, I have a tendency to go with keeping my seam in the middle on my straight line. Okay, get rid of that. Now, we piece together two 2.5 inch strips, which means we need to subcut these now into 2.5 inch strips. So I just keep my center straight, and we need 4 of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and I see I had plenty of left over there, so we can use that for another. So now we have all of our pieces. So now we can lay out the block and put it all together. This is such an easy block. Now that we have all of the pieces that we need, the squares to go into our bigger block, we're ready to put it all together. So we've got our half square triangles, our strip pieces with our 2.5 inch strips together, and we need that single 2.5 inch square in the middle. So now we're ready to put it all together. I've laid it all out, darks in the middle, darks, lights. Okay, we're good to go. Now, you can piece this either way. You can either do a row at a time and then connect those rows, or do a column at a time, whichever way works for you. I think I'm going to go with the rows. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip that over there, this over here, and this over here. And actually, let's see, if I'm doing rows, yes. For a minute there, I confused myself. Yep. So then I'm going to take these to the sewing machine and I'm going to stitch 1/4 inch. Then I'm going to come back here, I'm going to open these up, and then I'm going to put this on them. And sew 1/4 inch. And that way I will end up with 3 rows all together. And then we're going to come back and connect those together. Now that I have my 3 rows sewn together, and I also pressed them. Now, in this case, you want to press your top and your bottom, if you're doing it in rows like this, one direction, and your middle one the opposite. Basically, you want to be able to nest the seams. So when we flip these over, this seam is going that way, and the seam underneath it is going that way. Therefore, they just settle into each other very nicely. We call that nesting. So in this case, I made the decision to press inside for my top and my bottom rows, and I pressed outward on the other ones. And it really doesn't matter which direction these seams had been pressed, because you're not matching them with anything. So now we're going to do the exact same thing we did with our rows. We're going to now connect the rows together. So I'm going to put this on here, sew 1/4 inch, open it up, put this one on here, sew 1/4 inch, and then we will have the block finished. And there you have it, your double wrench or your monkey wrench or whatever other name was listed. Your block is done. And I think it's a pretty one. This is our 10-inch block. With it being sized this way, you have a variety of sizes. And then on the back, note here, I pinwheeled. So basically you take your seams and you kind of open them up and twist them, and you can pinwheel those in the middle, and then they'll lay nice and flat. So you have a nice flat block. This is a fun and simple block that is so easy to do. I will have a post below with some images you can look at of how you can lay this out and how it can look when you start putting blocks together in a quilt. And I will also include a freebie to get a coloring template so you can kind of decide what colors you want. Take care and have a great day. Thank you so much for watching. I very much appreciate it. If you want to make sure you don't miss a single video I published, hit the subscribe button below and then hit the bell icon. And that way you will be notified whenever I publish a new video. But you can also find me over on Facebook. Facebook.com/Wendy, the initial J, Haney. Or I have a Facebook group for those of you that love quilting, needlework, books, wine, and wellness. You can find that at facebook.com/groups/Life Fulfilled. The name of the group is Life Fulfilled - Quilting, Needlework, Books, Wine, and Wellness. You can also find me over on my website, wendyjhaney.com. I will be doing more blogging over there eventually. As I get more of my videos done, I'll be blogging about those. But also, maybe you see some things that I'm making here and you're going, ooh, wow, I just don't want to make that myself. Well, a lot of those products will end up over there on the website that you can purchase for your friends and family. Once again, thank you so much for your support, and I appreciate you watching.